Hello, my lovely and loyal audience. I'm going to reveal to you the winners of the I Like to Watch side of the Mad Bomber Episode 1 Reloaded competition. There were some fantastic entries in this side of the competition. And I'm also going to have a little bit of a talk about continuity via one of my favourite TV shows that I grew up with. But before we do, let's throw up that little warning. Righto, let's move on. And I had to ditch that chicken because he was hogging the screen. He wanted to take over the show. But I believe a video needs a rubber chicken in it, so possibly he's enhanced the show up to this point, but he's gone. A big thank you to those who entered. I expected more on this side of the competition. It's funny, the producers side of the competition just went berserk, and competitions are animals. They're hard to train. They start off small and then they get bigger and bigger, and you've got to spend a lot of time managing them, but they're great networking. That's what you've got to understand about competitions. They are fantastic networking opportunities. And I really wanted this competition to bring together the Thomas fan community tightly. And I want to give back some of the really cool stuff that I've customized and just give it to the people that should have it. And so that was really what it's all about. Let's talk about continuity. And like I said, I'm going to display this via one of my favorite TV shows. What is continuity? Basically, continuity is making sure when you make a video, everything is in the right order. Everything is the same between shots and scenes. Making sure that it all looks the same when you jump from one scene to another. Why does it go wrong? Well, it's pretty simple. Films and television shows, quite often they're made over a long period of time and they're not shot in sequence. This happens all the time. I think every film that's been produced has these errors in them. There are some clangers. I had a lot in rolling stock. I really did. I sort of thought there was about 12 hardcore errors. There's actually more like 25, which I've sort of allowed to creep through via this competition. And there's some there which were fantastic finds. And there's one of the YouTubers, the person who won this side of the competition, had an amazing list, just stunning in the way it was detailed. And that's what it was all about, having the detail. Look, let's have a look at the Thunderbirds continuity errors in some of the launch sequences of the vehicles. I think you might find this interesting. Yeah, I grew up watching the Thunderbirds every morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I used to watch this show. It really had a big impression on me. And here's a real quick one. The Thunderbirds 1 launch sequence, when it's at the top of the bay and Scott's come in and got in the craft and he's getting changed, getting ready to fly. You see it starting to descend down to the area under the pool where it launches. But then it cuts away to a sideways shot. And what do you see? You see this, it's descending down. Well, where's the problem there? Well, hang on a second, we were looking down the ramp and we're seeing this side. Now we're looking sideways onto the ramp and we're still seeing this side. But what you find with Thunderbirds is, with Thunderbird 1, you rarely ever saw this side of the craft. Possibly only when it was coming into land did you get any glimpse of the underside of this craft. The Thunderbirds craft, they all had their nice looking sides. And probably the only one which had a good looking side all the way around was Thunderbird 3. Yeah, if you go in and look at the Thunderbird 2 pod selection sequence, there's 6 pods, I believe, and I used to think it was cool when they selected pod 6. To me, that was like the really special pod. It also always had the fancy equipment in it. We know what pod 4 had. It had Thunderbird 4 in it. Anyway, the pods would come out bunched up all together. And then mysteriously, when Thunderbird 2 starts to drop down in its pod, the pods separate apart and let the wings go down. Somebody points this out to you and you think, things are looking grim in the hangar of Thunderbird 2. That's its position just before it starts to exit the cave. And here's my little bit of trivia about Thunderbirds. The roundhouse, which is on Tracy Island where Thunderbird 3 launches through, is actually the same shape as Thunderbird 5. And if you can imagine for a moment that's Thunderbird 5 up in space, you used to see Thunderbird 3 come in and dock into it like that. Just to explain how this side of the competition was judged, it was only me looking at all these mails coming in with the error lists. All the mails came in I basically put them into a Word doc. So your channel icons there and all sorts of info. Had to go through each of those and evaluate them. I had to go and look at the video, and you had to prove to me that you'd found the errors. The people who entered were very good at pinpointing the spots, and thank you for that. There's some excellent finds there. And then there was a list made up of basically all the people who entered on this side. And then there was the compliant list, I called it, the people who responded back to me after I sort of gave people a second chance. And I felt that was really important to make it fair. And interesting thing there was 35 people initially entered, but only 20 of them were compliant in the fact that they got back to me. I'm not going to spend like 24/7 chasing people for their lists. And then from that, there's the 25 errors that I've honoured that we'll go in and look at right now. Okay, well here's the first one I gave to you, was the piano wire, and here in the opening sequence you can see where the arrow is, the piano wire which is pulling Ted along. And this was seen many times throughout the video. The next one I gave you was the coupling error. I sort of snuck that in and gave it to you because I wanted to illustrate to you this is the sort of thing that I'm after. The third one I gave you was the general dirt on the train's faces and their bodies over a period of time, and it changes all the time. The next one I gave you was that the trains are in a constant state of derailment, and this is because they had the Ertl wheel sets on, and some of the models had better wheel sets. I think the duck model was always a beauty, so I think I was swapping duck wheels and putting them on Thomas ones. Error number 5 are all about the signals. Throughout the whole video, the trains disobey the signals. Error number 6, it's all about the buffers and wheel sets. On various engines in various shots, they change around. Error number 7, and this one is the clanger of the video. This is the big one. This is the one that basically nobody sees. Now, I gave hints to people that if you went and trawled through the comments of the original upload, this is actually discussed in detail. And the YouTuber Sparkshot was the first person, I believe, to notice this error. And when I was told, I didn't believe it until I went and viewed it myself. And sure enough, this area here, his pants are on back to front. His back buffer beam is at the front here, and vice versa on the back. Now, like I said before, I used many Thomas models. One of them obviously was built up incorrectly. But it's amazing what people don't notice. But from now on you will. And I certainly see it every time now. So Sparkshot, well done. And to the very few people who noticed this, really well done. Error number 8. Looking down, all of a sudden the coal trucks have been changed over to scruffies. The troublesome trucks have gone. Now I sort of remember why I did this. The scruffies are empty and I dressed in a little bit of that fake coal, the rubber dust that I was using. As you can see here, the troublesome trucks have got that hard plastic fake coal on top. To look down, I needed to look like these were empty. Again, not many people saw this, so look at the other frame to prove the point. This is the scene just prior to the scruffies appearing, and this is Thomas reversing back to the loading position, and you can see these two troublesome trucks. Error number 9, and it's to do with the coal load that Thomas had been supplied with. It's a huge heap of coal there, and there's coal all over the ground, and what you'll notice when we go to the next frame, and he's just finished picking up his load and he's pulling away, and now look, where's all that coal gone? Error number 10, and it has to do with the troublesome trucks that Thomas is pulling at the moment. All of a sudden we've gone to a different looking load. This is now the shiny plastic top that you see in a troublesome truck, rather than the matte rubber dust that I had just in the previous shot. Error number 11, well, as Thomas is traversing this piece of line, well, there's a potato farmer there, and what you'll see in the next scene is Thomas has somehow doubled back, because there's the potato farmer there, and he's just getting blown up in a part that he's already passed. And of course you can tell by that little hut and the other things laying around. Error number 12, and what we'll see on the breakdown van is that this rope will all of a suddenly just disappear. Well, here we are with Thomas being loaded onto the flatbed truck, but where's that sling gone? It was actually a shoelace I used in that part, and it can't be seen anywhere. So that was a good find by the few that saw it.
Error 13, and it relates to the way Thomas was loaded. Well, he's loaded in pieces. There's his little smiling face there. Funny how he smiles in times of great adversity. Hard up against seeing Thomas's little face laying on the crane, we see him reassembled on the crane, and also the sling has appeared from nowhere. Error 14, and it relates to this towed van here, especially the direction of him. Now, I didn't know about this one. A few people noticed it, and they detailed it very, very well. That was the thing about if you noticed something, you had to really have the evidence. Okay, here we are looking at the next frame, and we see there's the toad, his open area, and there's Bob. And the few that picked it up have done well, and I'm marking it as correct. There was lots of talk about this frame, and it's in a sequence after Thomas has arrived in on this track. The flatbed truck's obviously, or the crane's gone. We can see that the relationship between Toad and Bob seems to be different. The troublesome trucks look like they've gone. This is a Douglas, has sort of appeared. Thomas is now over here, and the fat controller's rolled in before these video cameras. Now, I've put this down to the fact that we're looking in time frame a little bit later in the day. We're not necessarily looking at a scene directly hard up against Thomas rolling into the rail yards. Error 15, it actually relates to this area up here. This is the brick wall of the garage, and that's the edge of the sky. Error 16, and it relates to this chart that the fat controller's holding and the style of it. Let's go and look at the next scene. When he presents this to Andy about the figures of the coal mine, we can see it's a totally different type of chart. Error 17, and it's the writing on this stock report, and it's the punctuation here, and it's just poorly written. It's a terrible piece of writing, and I just said that only one person pointed this out, and I had to award it because it was such a funny find. Error number 18, it relates to the relationship between the tracks on the inside of the shed versus what we see in the outside, and basically we've got 4 available tracks that could go outside here. We've got some points in this shed, that's why we end up with 7 positions. I always needed 7 positions because they were the characters who were making the videos. So here we are looking down on top of the shed, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 lines going in, but back on the inside we only see 4 opportunities for lines to go in. Error 19, and we can see Noel here coming into the sheds. We can see the doorways clearly here. There's 2 lines coming in this double door, and there's Thomas's line. And the points, there's a set of points just behind Thomas, and that's the track which is next to Thomas. Now only one person noticed this. Noel's coming in on this line, but look where he ends up. We'll go to the next scene. And here we can see somehow Noel has slid in beside Thomas. Now that's impossible because we saw that the points are on this track. Noel should be here. Somehow he's done a runner and he's jumped next door. Error 20, and we're inside the sheds and we're watching the ghost story, Chris's ghost story. Just before we go there, it's also this little scene is shot on a fisheye lens, just to bring that bit of kookiness in. And my tip with fisheyes is don't overuse them, just keep them for a couple of special shots, and you can really pull some nifty looks with them. Or the where people fail with them is that they go crazy with them. You've just got to pull them out every now and then. And we're looking at the signal. Now look what it's doing at the moment. It's down. When we cut to the ghost story, look where it is. There's the ghost train just about to disappear, but look at the signal. It's up. Error 21, and it relates to this title. It says LPG gas. Well, there's an issue here. What do these letters stand for? Liquid petroleum gas. The G shouldn't be there. The person that pointed this out to me was the man who narrated the video, and he also does the voice of Scottish John. In real life, he actually owns a business in the gas industry in Australia. He's very high up in the gas industry. And he said to me, "Hey Leo, that title's wrong," and he's correct, and I'm not going to argue that. Error 22. This is Ted, and there's a bit of an art shot going on here. We've got a wide-angle lens going on. It's a bit of a dramatic moment. He's actually talking about videos, and it's more of a visual in relation to the verbal. Two people said he's off the rails. He certainly is. He's well ahead of the pack. Normally he'd be in line there. I was going to neglect this one as an error, but I thought, no, I better keep it in. It's a good observation. So Ted, yep, he's off the rails. He's right up the front in no man's land. Well, here's one that a few people brought up, and it's in relation to this wrecked duck that's just sitting here. It's a wrecked one because I probably grabbed the wheels from this and installed it onto Thomas. Well, it's not actually blocking a line because this track here goes like this. There's a set of points there. That's why we end up with 7 positions here and only a couple at the doors. The issue some people were saying was it's moved in relation to the animation that Thomas made. But you've got to remember that animation was done at a completely different time. And let's just look at the animation shot. Well, here's Thomas in the animation, just a frozen moment of it. And of course, this is seen hard up against that reverse shot in the sheds. But remember, this animation is a video done by Thomas, done at another time. It's not done in the same time frame as being in the sheds. Well, it's daylight here, it's a totally different day. So this duck over here, it certainly looks like it's straight and not crooked. There could be very good reason for that because it's nowhere near the same time as we see it in the back of the shed at night. Just of interest, a couple of frames, a little bit of fluff crept in on this animation, and if you look at it, you'll see it. It's very quick, but I noticed it right from the start. What I should have done was gone in and painted it out. Would have been really easy to fix. Error 23, and it's in relation to Thomas. This is just before he darts backwards and exits the shed, and we know he's up against the wall here. And if you go and look at the next frame, he should be on this line. He's jumped over to this one. Okay, here we are on the outside, and we can see looks like he's popped out of the middle of the shed there. In reality, he should be over here somewhere. Well, this frame here is the first body of evidence to error number 24. And considering Thomas and Andy were both in this mother of all fireballs and explosions, we should have a look just how Thomas came out. Well, here he is the next day back at the rail yards after that huge explosion. What is interesting here is it's exactly the same Thomas that was used in the first explosion. And I thought, well, yeah, that's a fair enough error because that's absolutely correct. All this set was shot at once, and in reality I should have just had a crispy critter there, maybe with a face left behind. Just going on to explain error 24, well, here's Andy as he came out of that fireball, and he's like a molten wreck. And his injuries are, in a sense, far worse than the way Thomas came out. Error 25, and there's a policeman. Now, the policeman's shorter than the Fat Controller. But in the next scene, different scar looking at both of these characters, and you can see that the Fat Controller is now shorter than the policeman. Only a few people really notice that one, and I reckon that's a pretty good find.